Hello and welcome to The Last Edit, a weekly film podcast with myself, Sleeve, and the wonderful.
Silver Hawkins.
And this week, we're following on with our last week's kind of Christmassy theme, and I chose Richard Donner's 1988 Christmas comedy, Scrooged, starring Bill Murray and Karen Allen, and a few other people. It's quite a divisive film. I think we'll pick it apart in a second, and Silver will definitely have some criticisms, I would suggest. It wasn't received well when it was released back in the late 80s. And I think it's because it's an atypical Bill Murray performance. It's exactly what you would expect from a sardonic CEO, which we'll talk about in a second. But beyond that, it's tonally all over the place. It goes from slapstick to bleak to him burning and then it suddenly becoming happy and then a direct breaking the fourth wall final it's all over the place. I just have this weird soft spot for it because I don't know, there's just moments in it I really like, and because I'm a horror fan it kind of dips into that a little bit, I think. So quick synopsis then: if you know Scrooge, you know what this film is. The different setup is really simple. Bill Murray's character Frank Cross is this high-flying CEO at a TV station, and they're about to do the big Christmas special. And in essence, he's a mean bastard. He hates anything nice. He hates anything Christmassy. He hates sappy relationships. He hates everything that would make a normal person happy. Keeps rejecting his brother at Christmas for parties and all kinds of stuff. So he sits in this boardroom with these people around him, including Bobcat
Goldthwait.
Goldthwait, and he is just hilarious in this film. He's brilliant. He's obviously in a load of comedy films,
Yeah.
but he plays this advertising exec or this TV exec really well. So they watch this trailer that they've set up for him to watch, and he watches it and despises everything about it. So then has a go at them all, stands at the front and put his Christmas ad on, which is essentially Christmas the Apocalypse, which is just brilliant. But prior to that, we've got to mention the one that is shown by those guys to him, which is basically like Santa becomes action orientated, like Die Hard for Christmas. It's brilliant. Lee Majors is the action star, and he's saving the elves and shooting the Incaran force. It's so random and weird to begin a Christmas movie like that. And that's the setup, and from there we go on to him kind of paralleling his own Scrooge show on the TV station while it's being made, while we're seeing him getting visited by the three famous ghosts.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll kick it over to you. Let's get your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I wasn't too fond of it. I was fine with the movie throughout most of it, but it just completely fell apart at the ending.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
Like really, what you want out of a holiday film or a Christmas film for me is that warm, fuzzy feeling at the end, and here it just doesn't feel earned or earnest at all. Like Murray's dialogue at the end, or monologue rather, feels contrived. Felt contrived.
It doesn't
to me.
feel heartfelt at all.
It's really cringy. The moment they bring up Calvin, the movie's version of Tiny Tim,
Tiny Tim, yeah.
and he finally breaks his silence to say goodwill towards all, or whatever it was. I don't remember, but something like that. Like, it's so artificial. It's so cringy. Yeah, the movie just really... I mean, that was basically... It felt like that was basically just Donner just letting Murray be Murray and just do improv whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah, we have to finish this movie, and this guy wants to do a break in the fourth wall moment.
Yeah, or whatever. And they just kind of fell apart. But yeah, the movie was inconsistent throughout. I mean, I think my biggest problem with it was that it doesn't really have characters. It has punchlines. Like, the only character who kind of approaches being a character is the movie's version of Bob Cratchit, which is his secretary, Grace. She's the only one who seems to have any real depth. I mean, even Karen Allen's character, Claire, which is Bill Murray's romantic interest and former girlfriend, she feels one note. Every character feels one note. Bobcat Goldthwait's character is funny, but again, he's just a punchline throughout the film. And I think
no
that's why
redemption arc, isn't that the problem, especially with his character?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I never felt a connection to any of the movie's characters because they all felt like punchlines. And Murray's change of character never feels believable to me. Like it just switches. Like even after the first two ghosts have visited him, he's still basically the same amoral douchebag. But it's only when he's confronted with the specter of his death that all of a sudden he's, oh, I'm happy to be alive. Oh, I'm transformed. Which that transformation does not feel believable to me to that extent. And I think that was one of my those were my main issues with the film. Like the comedy is uneven. I found like some of the jokes haven't aged well. Bobcat Goldthwait showing up with a shotgun. Uh,
Oh, it's
to,
so
to, to
very
go
much
go after
88.
to go after Bill Murray. Not really funny in today's climate. To me, it's a little too real.
Well, the representation of women isn't exactly wonderful at times. I mean,
No,
you've got
yeah,
everything from the mistreatment of Grace, like literally grabbing her to stay because he has
yeah.
to stay, like this
He has to
subservient
work
thing.
late. Yeah,
And then, of course, you've got the three dancing girls basically doing like an almost like a hip hop video on the set of Scrooge, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's a bit cringy. And even the woman who comes to inspect the place, and they talk about nipples and all this kind of random stuff,
yeah. The
and then she
censor.
gets, yeah, and continually she gets knocked out or hit by stuff. I I know exactly what you mean, and none of the characters grow in any way, and those characters you kind of think might grow totally don't in any way. I think I don't have any problem with the sardonic nature of the main character. My problem is that it doesn't go anywhere else beyond that. So
Right.
just as you think there's going to be a reprieve for this character with every ghost, I'm gonna come to the ghosts because I think that's my favorite part of the film, and that's why maybe
Yeah.
I go back to it now and again. Um, Nothing happens with him at all. The first ghost, he goes back to the past. The taxi driver's
Yeah.
hilarious. I think he's great.
Yeah.
Such an amazing
He's
caricature.
probably the best ghost. My favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just got a lot of character. So they go back and he sees his butcher father come in from Christmas and throw him some veal, and I don't know what's going on there. And then he goes through this arc of crying in front of them, seeing his past, seeing how he met Claire, and all these wonderful moments. But every time he almost says something that might be considered heartwarming or sweet, he immediately is like, I can't stand her, don't want to be near her, how dare she? And he's back on to being that sardonic character again.
Yeah.
There's no reprieve that lasts long enough for you to go, okay, well, now we're going to get the heartwarming comedy that tips everything over the edge.
I think for my part, it also doesn't help that I'm not a huge Bill Murray fan to begin with. Uh, like I never really connected with Murray's comedy. My biggest problem with Ghostbusters, as much as I love that film, is actually Bill Murray and the character of
Really.
Peter Venkman. I think he's the worst aspect of that film. Um, yeah, I mean that to me it was basically classic Bill Murray. Still, the best Bill Murray performance I've seen is still Groundhog Day.
Yeah, that's his best film, I think, in a comedy
Yeah,
sense, anyway.
I mean in any sense, even a dramatic sense to me.
Mm.
I mean you can argue Lost in Translation. He's pretty good in that one as well. But to me it's Groundhog Day. But yeah, yeah, it just feels a little too much like a vehicle for Murray, really, and for Murray
Yeah.
to do his stuff and strut,
It also feels like
basically.
a Tim Burton movie gone wrong, but not made by Tim Burton at times. Visually,
I,
aesthetically,
I
it's
can,
really Tim
I
Burton.
mean, for the cap, yeah, I mean the cap looked very Tim Burton-y, like the design of it, how it
Mm.
worked with the driver and so forth. I could
That
see
dry
that,
ice as smoke and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
his
I could
earlier
I could see
films.
that in a Tim Burton film, yeah,
I
yeah,
found it
I
really
could
odd
see
as
that,
well. Danny Elfman does the music for this film, so again, the longtime collaborator of Tim Burton. But I know Danny Elfman very, very well, and most of the soundtrack sounded like Batman Returns, with elements of Batman. That lead intro score, oh, that's exactly the same score, I think, or at least modified, when we first see Penguin's parents and they take Penguin to that bridge and tip him off at the start of Batman Returns. It's
right?
so similar. It's like they're not that far apart. Batman's 89, this is 88, Batman Returns is 92. It's as if his style is still not. He's done Beetlejuice and he's done Edward Scissorhands at this point, but his style is still quite similar and hasn't quite broken out of
Well,
where
you
it
see that.
was yet.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with a lot of composers. You see that with
Yeah,
Zimmer as well, and John Williams even in places.
yeah, absolutely. When they haven't got subject matter which is different, sometimes it's a lot of gothic based stuff and that kind of visual design, Burton-esque. But yeah,
Yeah,
I did like the ghosts. I love the ghosts. They're not all wonderful, and there's stupid moments between them. Um, Obviously, the first one with Taxi Driver, as we talked about, just got a lot of character. I love the way the cab's designed. The lighting is pretty cool. That dry ice that is very Tim Burton-esque,
yeah,
and he's just on it. He's a wise guy, and I think that suits that particular role. The Ghost of the Present, the hardcore. I'm going to punch you in the face if you say anything again to me, Angel, Fairy even is
yeah,
brilliant. I think she's
yeah.
she's just
Carol
cool.
Lock, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, yeah, but it just goes too far with her, I think, at times. So it
Yeah, it
becomes less
does.
funny.
Yeah,
The initial impact of it is like, oh, that's pretty cool. But
yeah.
then the slapstick goes too far.
It wears out
And then the
sloppy. Yeah.
final ghost is, I like the design. It's a bit like, I don't know, the creatures that come out of the
Yeah,
latex shell of it are a bit weird.
yeah. The design of it is pretty cool, but it just
Yeah,
doesn't really accomplish much of anything. Um,
yeah, exactly. I mean,
and
there were some funny
yeah,
moments. Robert Mitchum is pretty cool as the CEO above
yeah,
Bill Murray's character,
yeah.
and he
You
he
know,
comes in and
cats
says,
are the future. Yeah.
exactly. Can we make some programming for cats and dogs? They'll be the audience of the future. You're
Yeah.
like, I don't put my hat to you, sir. Nice, very, very nice. So
Yeah.
there's very few saving gra Why did I choose this film? I can't remember now. Christmas classic. No, I
Well, I
just
mean,
find
you
it.
you watch it every year.
It's
You said
no, I
so.
do. I find it
Yeah.
intriguing as a film. I always have. It's one of those films that it's got some very odd, unique moments. And Marie at times is
It does.
kind of cool. The
Yeah.
opening is almost better than the rest of the film. That Lee Majors Santa scene and then the boardroom scene, I
Yeah.
think are two of the
And
best scenes in the film.
Bob Goulet's Cajun Christmas,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
where he's being
So yeah,
chased by an alligator.
so it's a shame the film limps over the line in the end. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to. It could have done something else, but I think you're right. I think in the end, Richard Donner just said
I
Bill
will.
Murray wants his moment.
I will say one thing I noticed that really surprised me, and I couldn't remember it. But I mean, also I hadn't watched this film in I don't know 15 years or more. But how political it was. Like there are constantly throughout the film, like in Grace's apartment, in
Mm,
stickers, in the TV production booth, everywhere there are like stickers and posters to free South Africa because this movie was made in 1988, which is when apartheid was
apartheid, yeah.
still in South Africa, was still ruling South Africa. So that's a message that actually is sort of hinted at throughout the film, and I
Mm.
mean, it's never openly addressed, but it is there, and it's really political in that way, which surprised me.
Well, the film does also discuss homelessness in a variety of ways.
It
Obviously,
does,
you have Elliot who's thrown onto the street, but for more comedic effect. Then you have the homeless shelter where he arrives, and Karen Allen works there,
yeah,
and he meets a few of the people, and he meets a guy called Herman, and later we find out that Herman is frozen to death,
yeah.
and he kind of screams at this frozen dead body of this lovable guy we met prior, but it doesn't do it well enough
No,
in
because
any
there
way,
was no
shape, or
connection
form.
there. There was no connection with
Exactly.
Herman at all. So that scene when he finds Herman dead in beneath the sewer grates, frozen to death, just doesn't really have any emotional resonance because we don't really know Herman. There's no connection established between him and
Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah, the characters are very flat, they're very one-dimensional, they're never fleshed out properly. And it would have been nice to spend a lot more time in that homeless shelter, getting to know the core characters and Karen Allen to a much greater extent than we ended up having within particularly that middle to latter period of the film,
Yeah,
when we could have separated ourselves a bit. But yeah, I think it's almost like a bad Tim Burton movie. It's like Tim Burton had a bad day, like Planet of the Apes or something, when he thought everything was going well. But what shocks me is it's not. It's a Richard Donner movie. It just doesn't,
I think there
amongst the
were.
body of his work, it just almost doesn't fit.
I think I mean I've heard something about Murray saying in an interview with I think it was Roger Ebert or something that he had disagreements with Donner and that
Right.
their shooting was really quick, almost practically like live, almost kind of thing. And I think if that's true, that does sort of put some of the scenes into context
Well, star
of
power. Obviously, Murray was
of a kind of
overtaking the
improv
scenes and
style
ad
from
libbing
Murray.
maybe
Yeah,
too much and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
and then you lose the flow. It's fine to ad lib, but when you've got a flow of a script, you need to maintain that in comedy. Otherwise,
yeah,
chaos ensues. And I think that's kind of what this film is. It's just a bit chaotic. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's quite mean spirited at times. None of the relationships pan out effectively, so you get any kind of you know, emotional connection to what's going on. And yeah, it's a shame. It could have been so much more. I think
yeah.
in the hands of Tim Burton, do you know what? It might have been much better. It really might have been. But
Maybe,
hey.
but I mean, even Burton is capable of misses. Sadly, misfires.
Yeah, especially the latter part of his career. Everything from Willy
Yeah,
Wonka to, well, the list goes on and on and on, I guess. But even Big Fish is not an outstanding film. That's got some major pacing problems as well.
yeah,
But we digress.
yeah.
So Scrooge, 1988, a Bill Murray comedy. I watch it every year. I don't know why. So I'll give it a go and see what you think. It's got some silly moments. It's got some okay slapstick. There's some okay performances in there. And visually, now and again, it kind of looks quite cool. But it hasn't got a lot of depth. And it won't make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, if
No,
that's
I
what
would
you're looking
probably
for.
recommend Muppets Christmas Carol as a
Muppets
version
Christmas Carol.
of
Absolutely.
a Christmas Carol over this.
Even Jim Carrey's CGI one is actually not
Yeah,
that bad. Now I'm not a huge fan of him as an actor, but the performances are pretty good in that film. But yeah, Christmas Carol Muppets go.
yeah, Jim
That's
Carrey's
brilliant.
pretty decent as an actor. What was it? I mean, there was Truman Show, obviously,
Truman
but
Show,
my
yeah.
favorite with him is actually a really sort of schmaltzy, typical standard Hollywood film. But I really enjoyed The Majestic. If you've ever seen that.
Yeah. There's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind as
Oh
well.
yeah,
That springs
yeah,
to
for
mind as
sure.
something a bit
Yeah,
different. I just
that
never
film is
liked.
amazing.
People are gonna scream at me in the comments, but I just never liked his zany comedy stuff. So I'm
No,
not a
I
fan
didn't
of Dumb and
either.
Dumber or
I didn't
Mask
either.
or
Nope.
you know,
I
too over the top for me.
yeah.
Way too over the top.
It's like every one of my classmates adored Dumb and Dumber and would
Yeah,
like
same.
watch it
Hmm.
ceaselessly, and I always would just sit there going, "Oh,
Yeah, this is not comedy. This is
yeah,
toilet humor, and I can only deal with so much of it.
yeah."
Right then, hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Silver, what are we looking at next week, sir?
We are staying in the comedy genre and looking at a French animated film by Sylvain Chomet, one of the great artists of modern animation who still sticks with 2D animation, and his film Les Triplets de Belleville, The Triplets of Belleville,
The Triplets
which
of Belleville. Okay.
which is one of my favorite films. Not only just one of my favorite animated films, but one of my favorite films of all time. That it's an amazing film. Barely any dialogue in it at all. It's pretty much told exclusively through visuals, and
Oh, interesting.
it's an amazing film.
Okay, well, it's on YouTube, guys. Apparently, this film. So if you're watching this and you want to keep up with us and watch the film we're going to see next Sunday and discuss, by all means, hit that up on YouTube. Now, Christmas films. We've just gone through two. Talk to us in the comments. What are your favourites? Did you like Scrooge? Did you like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? Are there any particular that you watch every year?
It's
Let's
a
get a
Wonderful
film
Life,
dust.
right?
My girlfriend just watched that the other night.
Yeah.
Someone in work gave it to her, and I think we talked about it, and
Yeah.
she was just, "This is such an amazing film." So, thank you
That's
so
great.
much for watching. We have been The Last Edit. I have been Sleeve.
And I've been Silver Hawkins.
Have a good Christmas, folks, but we'll
Take
see you
care.
next week.
Happy holidays.